Good morning, Chillie here with Chillie Cruises. Happy cup of coffee to everybody on this Saturday morning, the 12th day of October 2019. Welcome to Travel and Cruise Industry News. As you can probably tell in the background, Brat the cat is being obnoxious this morning, claiming that he's starving to death, which is, you folks know, isn't true. Before we get to the news, and there's some rough news this morning, but before we get to that, a little explanation about why Brat the Cat's being obnoxious. This is the 0 year in my family. I just turned 70 here a couple weeks ago. And my sister will turn 80 in February. And my niece next week, this coming week, turns 50. So this year is the 0 year, 50, 70, and 80 between the three of us in the family here. So my niece is going to be gone. I'll be running her business for 10 days or so while she's gone starting this next week, but she'll be gone on her birthday. She'll be in New York. So we took her out to dinner last night. She decided she wanted sushi. That's fine. I love sushi. My sister and brother-in-law are not sushi fans, but they like the hibachi at the sushi restaurant we go to. So we took Amanda for sushi last night. And Brat the cat is why I'm getting around this circle here. Brat the cat is being obnoxious this morning because we failed to bring him a tuna roll. So he's being a pain in the butt. But anyway, that's Brat the cat. Welcome to Travel and Cruise Industry News, folks. As you know, we're here in this space 3 days a week, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday at 6 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, where we'll cover anything that comes up in the world of travel and cruise industry news. It's weighted a little heavier toward cruises because I'm a cruise nut myself, having just gotten back on from one. By the way, anybody, if you trip across any terrific deals for solo travelers, I'm looking to do another cruise probably the last week of January through February. So if you come across a good solo deal anywhere, let me know about it because I'm in the market. I really don't care where I go. I don't care where I sail from as long as I'm on a boat, on the water, someplace. All right, let's get to the news, folks. The news out of Japan is not good. We didn't expect it to be good, and as we speak, this is going on right now. At least one person has been killed and several injured as Typhoon Hagibis approached central Japan this morning with hurricane force winds. Of course, over there, it's well into the day on Saturday. The storm weakened a little as it approached Japan, but still remains highly dangerous with maximum winds of up to 122 miles per hour, the equivalent of a Category 3 Atlantic hurricane. Hagibis made landfall Saturday afternoon local time. However, it's been affecting much of central and southern parts of Honshu, which is Japan's main island. And as always, folks, please don't hold me to Japanese pronunciation. It's, I'm sure, off in places. I do the best I can do for being a dumb old fat guy, country boy. The winds are between 100 and 130 miles an hour, expected to lash southern Japan, including Tokyo, for most of the morning through the evening tonight. They're also predicting 8 inches of rain, which is going to cause some massive flooding. Evacuation advisories have been issued throughout much of Tokyo. 1,500 flights have been canceled from the airports through Sunday morning. All of the bullet trains between Tokyo, Nagoya, and Osaka have been canceled, as are most of the high-speed trains. More than 10,000 households and the Kanto, Chiba, and Tokyo areas are without power already. Tough way to go for our friends over in Japan. Our thoughts are with you guys. I know it's bad. You're probably not hearing this now because power is out. And in case you are online somehow and have service, our thoughts are with you guys. Stay safe as possible. And like I tell our folks over here, don't do anything dumb. Don't try to be a hero. Stay safe. Rough storm. This is one of the worst typhoons in I don't know how many forever, for a long time. Just a really tough way to go for our friends over in Japan. I don't know how much I'll be able, at least through the day today, to do any updates because I do have a gig with the funnel cake business up at Liberty this afternoon, which goes from like 1 to 6. So I'm going to be out of touch for a good bit of the day today. We'll be back with updates by later this evening or tomorrow if necessary on the space. So that's it for Hagibis, a terribly difficult storm for our friends in Japan. The other thing to point out is, since we're talking about weather, if you recall on Thursday, we were talking about 3 systems out in the Atlantic that were basically nothing and not expected to do much. Well, one of them actually did. The one closest to New England became a subtropical storm, which I'm not sure what that means, but it's the first step on its way to being a tropical storm, on its way to being a hurricane, which that's not going to happen because it's too far north and the water's too cold. But it became a subtropical storm. It's currently moving away from the New England coast, but flooding is still a concern. Coastal flooding is expected in some areas during the day today around high tide times. The storm was about 250 miles southeast of Nantucket in Massachusetts, with maximum winds of 50 miles an hour. So pretty good coastal storm there. Lots of rain, lots of wind, lots of riptides. And it's going to cause some flooding with the high tides. It is expected to continue moving away and weakening during the weekend, so it'll probably just become a low pressure system by tonight or early tomorrow. So while it wasn't expected to become much of a storm, either one of those 3 things we were looking at, one of them did. So our friends from New England have got a little bit of trouble up there. At least it's not going to be bad. All right. We also talked earlier in the week about the Norwegian Spirit and the protests that passengers were carrying on because at first it was reported strictly because of weather conditions. They were canceling port visits left and right, and because of weather concerns. I sided with the cruise line on that. Well, as it turns out, in addition to the cancellation of ports, there was an issue with sewage smell on the boats, toilets not working and backing up. And it just added to the problems of the passengers being upset over the canceled ports. So the situation went from bad to worse to worse to worse to worse. So there were several unscheduled stops. There were several stops that were completely canceled due to the weather conditions. Finally, the Norwegian Spirit has landed in Southampton after a 2-week cruise. of which several times during the cruise, passengers were filmed shouting at cruise members and demanding refunds. The food was also, they said, going from bad to worse. It was just a bad situation. How much of it is because of the weather issue that started it all and then everything else became an issue, or the other issues were involved also? I don't know. I wasn't there. I haven't talked to anybody that was on the ship, but it looks like it just turned out to be just a disaster. That's what one of the passengers was calling it. It was a total disaster, not a vacation. They sold us an unforgettable cruise. I will not forget this cruise. Trust me, said that passenger. Norwegian Cruise Line has answered the issues of the weather and changing ports, which is the part of it that I agreed with, but they have refused to answer the complaints about the food or the state of the toilets. That part of it, Norwegian needs to get their act together. If you got some issues with this particular ship, then let's get that ship fixed. Get the toilet issues taken care of. Get your food issues taken care of. I can understand the weather, and I'm always going to support the cruise lines when they make calls due to weather issues, because they're looking for the safety of the passengers. But when it goes on to further things like that, it sounds to me like Norwegian needs to do a little more work in that specific area on that specific ship. This is not an overall call of problems to Norwegian. I just got off Norwegian and loved it. So on my ship, but I was not on the Spirit. Excuse me for a cough and in your face and a sip of coffee. One other story to cover this morning, and this came from one of our viewers actually, because I don't follow a lot of river cruise stuff, and when I'm researching, doing the show, when I do the show 3 days a week, sometimes, unless something pops into my wheelhouse, I don't even check on river cruises. But 5 passengers on the river cruise liner known as the Prinzessin Isabella were injured when the vessel was involved in a collision with a cargo ship. The incident occurred on the Danube River last weekend, actually, between Romania's Tulcea and Ismail in the Odessa region of the Ukraine. I'm just pointing that out. So an issue with a crash between a cargo ship and one of the river cruise lines. 5 people were hurt. The damage was corrected, and the superstructure was not particularly damaged terribly. And the cruise ship went on with its itinerary. So that happened this week. So not a lot of rough news this morning. Let's see what we got over here in comments. Jason, good to see you again. How many different Carnival ships have you been on? Well, let's see. Probably 7 or 8. And a lot of those are, I'm going, back. I started cruising my first cruise was in 77, 78, somewhere along in there. And those ships, of course, they're not even still sailing today. I go back with cruise ships before they had the stabilizers and stuff. When you got into rough seas, I mean, it was rough, and I still loved it. And Jason says I should go on the Panorama. I'm sailing on it from the East Coast, February 1st. Oh, cool. Well, let me look into that. The Panorama, I have not been on one of the big, massive ships yet. I've tended to cruise on smaller ships. And in the interim period, when I was going through the, replacing the hips issue, and then I wasn't able to cruise for several years there. The cruise ships got a whole lot bigger. A lot of things happened in that interim period. The specialty restaurant business became much more widespread. Of course, sushi bars, which I like. That into the specialty restaurants I like. But the ships themselves got huge. So I have not been on one of the super ships yet. I need to do that, quite frankly, even though I like the smaller ships. I love the size of the Norwegian Sun. That was just a really good size for me. One other thing that I'm going to mention this morning before we call it quits, I've had quite a bit of contact and talk about the special needs cruising video I put up as soon as I got back from this cruise last week, where basically I use myself as an example with my I don't know if you want to call it disabilities, infirmities, my problems with walking a lot, and how I get by with it to get the best out of a cruise, and the things that I found out during this cruise that you could do to make it better, and just making some suggestions for folks that have problems, special needs, or disabilities, and can still go on a cruise and get the maximum benefit out of it. So there's just some ideas in there. So down in the bottom, the description underneath here, I'll have put a link to special needs cruising and a link to the video itself. If you missed it when it was posted last week, or anybody that's in one of those situations and thinking about going on a cruise, gives you some ideas, suggestions that might make it a little bit better. And I use myself, folks, totally as an example. I also point out the biggest problem with this area is not necessarily from the physical limitations that a person can have, but it's getting past the ego issue of deciding, okay, I need to take some steps so I can enjoy myself and get my money's worth out of a cruise or a trip or a vacation, and get over the fact that you're not the same person you once were, which was a terribly difficult issue for me. I kept thinking, well, I can do this. And then when I finally realized you can't, you're either in trouble or hurting yourself on something like a cruise where you have to walk way more than you're capable of walking, which is my biggest issue. Doesn't mean everybody has that same issue, but that's my issue. I have trouble walking any distances at all. Bad knees that need to be replaced. Both of my hips have been replaced. I'm way overweight. I know, things that I'm working on. And of course, compounded that with back issues. So I can't walk like I used to. But anyway, you got anybody that's in that kind of situation, take the 10 minutes or whatever it is, watch the video, gives you some good ideas that you might use. I'm getting a lot of comments, a lot of people contacting me about this, a lot of people asking questions. So by all means, take a chance and do that. All right, that's going to wrap it up for this morning, folks. I'll be back with updates from Hagibis as needed over the weekend. Once I get past my little gig here this evening. And we'll see you back here again, definitely on Tuesday morning at 6 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. I regularly post videos on all facets of the travel and cruise industry. If you'd like to keep up with the latest in cruise ships, ports of call, cruises themselves, my interview show is called Chillie Chats, or travel and cruise industry news on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday at 6 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Hit the little subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner. Hit the bell notification so you'll be notified as soon as I go live, or as soon as a new video is posted. As always, appreciate a thumbs up, folks, or a thumbs down. Doesn't matter. I mean, it matters to me, but that lets YouTube know that somebody's out there and you responded. So I'd always appreciate that. And as always, welcome comments, contacts from everybody. I try to respond or answer to everybody that contacts me or sends me comments or emails or whatever at all times. So anyway, this is Chillie from Chillie's Cruises. Have a great weekend, everybody. And I will see you Tuesday, if not before then. Later, y'all.